And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in podcast land. Brendan Cunningham here, the real estate doctor at EXP with my partner, Matt Paul. He does it all. And frankly, I just wanted to say, we're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. Temperatures rising, da-da-da-da-da. What do you think about that? Huh?
Don't talk about the real estate market.
Well, that's what I was talking. Actually, I was talking about the weather. It's 52 degrees here. Flowers are starting to sprout. But yes, the market hot.
Yep, but it is a balmy 52, and I actually heard birds chirping today.
Mm-hmm. And you hear birds chirping. That's always the first time.
It's a sign of life. It's coming back.
Oddly enough, since you're talking about the market, which Zillow says is the hottest market in Buffalo right now, second year in a row, one of the things that typically happens in spring, phenomenon. A lot of people think, well, this is the time for me to buy a house. Well, you know what? You can buy a house at any time of the year, but I always think it's interesting. A lot of people do sort of change their perception and they want to buy a house.
Yep.
The strange thing about that is, actually, if you think about it, the smartest buyers would have bought in the winter.
Yep, competition.
When's the best time to buy a sailboat? The best time to buy a sailboat is in the winter when nobody wants it. Right? Come on.
Yeah, snowmobiles, you get a deal in the summer.
You buy them in the summertime. Air conditioners, you don't buy them in summer. You buy them in the winter. Yeah. But, that's not what most people do. They want to be in the summer, in the spring to look at houses. So we have a hot market, and then we have more people saying, oh, it's time to buy because it's spring.
Yep.
It's going to get a little hotter.
You get the spring fever.
You get the spring fever. They used to call it the salmon run.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Well, I'll tell you, this at 50 degrees, I'm in a T-shirt, so.
Well, you're probably one of those guys that wear shorts in the winter up here.
No.
You know what? We had a cold snap maybe about 3 or 4 days ago. Okay. I can remember driving through Casanova Park, and I'm looking at this simpleton walking around in shorts. I'm thinking, you'd only see this in Buffalo.
Yep.
It's just crazy. Snow all around it.
Yeah. In Hawaii, 50 degrees is freezing.
Oh, my God.
People are bundled
up. They were in Parkers.
Yeah.
At any rate, what one of the things that I find is interesting and intriguing about real estate and aggravating, it just aggravates me, is the use of abbreviations.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like going to the doctor and you listen to him and you say, so what do you think, doc? And he gives you this long-winded explanation. He drops a million freaking terms with acronyms in it. And you finally say to him, could you just talk English and just tell me,
layman's terms.
Am I going to die or what? Okay, layman's terms.
Yep.
And it's almost like the Achilles heel of virtually all state agents do this to some extent or another.
Yep.
They come up with abbreviations. And I can remember this one agent telling somebody else in the office, well, it's an FHA deal with FHA, depending on how they structure it. I mean, and they're going to have, they're not going to have PMI on this, so they're going to have MIP on this. And since they're talking about doing an ARM, it's like, what the hell are these people talking about? Well, it changes the PITI. It's a PITI. I'm listening to this conversation. Yeah. All of these things mean something, right? An ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. Could you just use plain PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance? And I saw one today, a new abbreviation. It was newer to me. I mean, I know what it is, but it's like, now we're going to do the abbreviation of this.
Neither of us knew what it was.
And I tested. I said, what do you think of? And after I told him, he still didn't know what it was. And I said, yeah, because it's stupid.
Yeah.
I said, so I read this statistic, and we always have statistics. 4% of the consumer population, the buyers out there, are looking for ADUs, and they pronounce it ADUs. ADUs. Now, I guess if you wanted to use the Italian vowels, you'd say ADUs. Are you looking for an ADU? Yeah. Talk about it. And you stop it. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you what it is, and you're still not going to know.
I actually thought you said, hey, dude.
Hey,
just
dude.
A new
hey, dudes. Development unit. Got it? All right, so now we can move on. Now you know what that is. What is that?
Yeah, 74% too.
I'm looking for them. Okay,
Wow.
Now let me translate it. An accessory development unit is any unit that it's basically a living space, a complete living space with a bathroom, a sleeping area, and hopefully a kitchen. So it could be an in-law situation.
Yep.
It could be a side-by-side duplex, an up and down double. Could be an apartment in the basement. We have a lot of young people living in the basement a little bit longer.
Yes.
Some becoming like Italy, where the young men, they stay at home pretty much till like 35, 40 because unemployment's so high over there. Yep. They can't afford to buy it. But so anything like that, and 74. And I said, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And in fact, I was having a conversation with my wife about the ADU, which I didn't even know it was an ADU. But like, what are we going to do? And we want to stay near our family. And unfortunately, I've got family. A lot of it's around the country, but my immediate family is right here. So as we get older, maybe we can set something up, a little in-law situation.
And they do.
And they do. I'm just going to say, listen, I'm looking for an extra space here.
Yeah.
It's a tree house. And they do. So now you got another. But some of the other terms that make me crazy. What's some terms for you?
So, and it's usually in the write-ups, right, when the agents are putting their public remarks together.
Killing me.
Yeah, and then just it's because we only have so much room and so much.
Oh, is that the reason?
character.
I always think it's because agents just want to sound smart.
Well, that too, but it's very confusing to a lot of people. Yeah. So, hot water tank, HTW, or HVAC, HVAC system. But, yeah.
Purple fireplace.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. What else do we have? So we have CMA. We talked about this.
Whole CMA for the end.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get back to that.
That's my headaches.
Good point. Yeah. Some more acronyms that we have. Well, there's ARM, as you mentioned, which is adjustable rate mortgage. Yeah. Those.
That's right.
I actually engaged in one of those back in the early 2000s, and it was not a good idea, but I did.
Sometimes there are, sometimes they're not. It depends on the situation. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine. Okay.
So we have what was the other one?
REO.
Yep.
REO, real estate owned. That means the bank has taken it back.
Yep. And then BPO is before price offered.
So you could have a BPO on REO.
You do.
Okay.
You usually do the BPO before the REO.
The broker's price opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like, could you just talk plain English to people? It's like, why make this harder than it is? It's already difficult. They've made it difficult and confusing. When I first moved to the Buffalo market back in 85, the real estate contract was 2 pages. Now, without the riders,
8 pages without all the additional, legal mumbo jumbo. It's a 13-page contract.
Okay, it's 13, and then but when you started adding some of the riders, and in most cases you're going to need probably 3 riders, things like the PCDS,
property condition disclosure.
That's going to be, and that's about 6 pages.
Oh yeah, 5 or 6
pages. So just that one gets me up to almost 19. If you have you're going to be up around 26, 28 pages. So it's a big, hefty, and there's a lot of abbreviations in there.
Yep.
If you're a good agent at the top of the game, you'll help the consumer understand what they are by saying, "Listen, this is going to make you crazy here."
Yeah. Back to layman's terms.
Speak to me. Just talk about what the hell you talking. A to Ed.
Yeah.
Stop. Yeah. PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
But I found, most people that unless you are an investor and do this often, when you're doing the buying and selling every 10, 15 years, you tend to forget everything by the next time you do it. So the more we confuse buyers, sellers, and everyone else, the harder we're making it. Really.
I think so, but I think a lot of agents think they're making that better for them.
Yes, I agree.
They need me to so they can understand this. I can remember one agent that I had.
But Google's a great tool. You use Google.
Yeah. Why do I have to Google a conversation?
You're right. You shouldn't have to.
I shouldn't have to do that.
No.
But I had this one agent, and he was one of those guys that he could overcomplicate something like nobody else could. He was a very effective agent, but he just made everything so complicated that if you did a transaction with him, you just wanted to kill yourself because it didn't have to be this hard.
Yeah.
And I can remember him presenting an offer in person in the office, and I happened to sit in. And at one point, he stepped out to go to the bathroom, whatever. And his client said to me, he said, "Boy, I'm so glad I had so-and-so working for me." And I said, "Good. I'm happy that you're happy." He says, "Yeah." He says, "So glad he's working on my side." He says, "Frankly, I don't even know what the hell he's talking about."
So is it good or is it bad?
I don't think that's the way it should work. Hey, work for him. God bless you. But I wouldn't want that. And the first time somebody was dropping these crazy abbreviations at me, I think I want to reach across the table and say, "Could you stop? Could you stop?" And I was chatting with Matt before we started. I had an agent who was like 3 weeks in the business, and he was talking to me. And I tell people, don't do this, right? But people just can't help themselves. And he went on. He said, "Well, I'm having some trouble because I'm chasing the other agent, and he's not. I'm concerned because it's an FHA deal, and I can't get the PCDS, and it's going to be required." I said, "What?" Because it had just come out. The property condition disclosure had just become a requirement of our transaction. It was a good thing, but we didn't have a requirement where there was a form. You always had to disclose any known latent defects, but the new form said you had to disclose it in writing on this form.
And in further detail.
And if you didn't, it was a $500 penalty. It's just, there's no penalty, but now it's just mandated. You have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. What was the other?
CMA.
CMA. What's a CMA?
So competitive market analysis.
That's what I think it is.
Yes. I said comparative market analysis.
And 90% of the agents will say it's a comparative market analysis. And that's interesting information, but they are fundamentally different. You could have the same documents, but you're really looking at different information. CMA, you're looking at the past. You're comparing your house to properties that have sold.
Comparable.
You're comparing them.
Yeah.
Pretty simple to understand. But my concern is I always want to make my market analysis competitors. My goal is to get your house sold. Or if you're on the buy side, to make sure that you're possibly not paying too much.
Overpaying. Yeah.
Overpay. Can you overpay? Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can. More times than not, it's a question of you're just setting the market.
Yep.
Okay? And that's what a market is. But yeah, so give me an idea how maybe it could work against you if you use one over the other.
Okay. So yeah, and with the comparable, then you're actually going on or competitive, you're going on previous or current market.
What's
properties.
my competition?
Yes. So what's your competition? So that is definitely going to be very advantageous when you're listing, to do anyways. But I do also go off of the comps, the closed sales.
You use a little bit of both.
I use a little bit of both. Correct.
That's important.
And that's on every listing. But with a buyer, I used to, up until COVID and the pandemic, I used to every single buyer, whatever house that they were putting an offer in, I would do an analysis, and I would say, this is pretty much as high as you can go because this is the closest comparable sale, and then that would give us the window of how much over asking you could go. Well, when things started to get real hectic and crazy, and the demand went through the roof, and there was 15 to 30 offers on a house, and you're going off of CMA or an analysis, your client's most likely not going to win that offer because it's all due to demand. So at that point, I pivoted, and I will still do an analysis to get a general number, but it really depends on how many offers you're up against.
So the other thing about a competitive market analysis, let's say we figure our house is worth $350, just for the sake of argument, that the seller wants to put on the market. Okay, what I would do is I would actually physically draw a circle around that area where they're at, and say, okay, I have $350,000. What can I buy? Oh, there's 10 properties for $350,000. Some are similar, some are not similar, but that's what my competition is. So if I put mine on for $360,000, guess who's the least competitive person in there? My house is actually going to help sell the other houses, or they'll get viewings first. So if I want to be competitive, I would say to that particular seller, you might probably want to be more at like $339,000, so that somebody says, well, this guy's, we got to take a look at this one first and then go over here.
Yep.
Because this guy's more competitive. It's a very subtle difference, but it can be a very powerful difference. Because we are still saying, we just sold a house last week, I think 50% over the asking price. 50% over the asking price. I mean, I will typically think, especially in the market that we're in now, which is Fast and Furious. Was it Fast and Furious last year? Probably. It doesn't make any difference. It's still Fast and Furious. But I always figure you could probably be looking at anywhere from 10 to 20% over the asking price. And that's just
on average.
On an average. Yep. Well, we both use a proprietary software system that very few people use in our industry. The smart ones, the top of the game, the RPR report, because it gives us wonderfully scientifically laid out range. It says, here's the deal. This is the house if it's a dump. This is the house if it's perfect. And this is where you want to be, somewhere in here. You don't want to be here, and you don't want to be here. It's really sophisticated. It has crazy algorithm. I don't know how it works, but it works for us.
Yeah.
And because we're some of the few people that use it, people gravitate to us. They don't necessarily get to see what we're doing behind the curtain, but that's what we're doing. We're using really powerful software systems like that. Yeah, so now the weather's good, or getting better, but it's not going to stay much.
Yeah, it goes up and down. Right? I see 30s coming in the horizon and stuff, but I have seen a ton of new houses hitting the market this past week as opposed to the prior weeks.
And you will see that. Other things start to happen. Like in our town right now in Buffalo, New York, March 6th, I guess it starts, 7th, Saturday. Yeah. We have the home show in Buffalo. By the way, if you need tickets to the home show, reach out to us. We can get you tickets. Absolutely. If you show up at the door, it's $12 a throw. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but you want to take you and a couple of the kids there, you drop $50. Yep. As realtors, we can provide you with those as a gift. Reach out to us.
Yes.
Home show. It's on for the next 2 weeks.
Yes. This weekend.
And you know what? You'd be amazed at some of the things that you don't think you need sometimes. And you go down there and you say, oh, this is kind of cool. And then you'll see you'll go down there, you'll see some things, and you say, "This is crazy. Why would I want to do this?"
Absolutely.
But you need to know what your options are.
And there's a lot of good contractors too. So if
A
you're
lot of good
looking to do
contractors.
work and you wanted to just kind of interview people
Yep.
and just,
Good
network.
stuff. I can remember I went to the home show one year, and we've seen an evolution of countertops over the years.
Have
Formica, when I was a kid, was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was just great.
laminate.
Laminate, was great stuff. And then Corian.
Yep.
came. Corian was a wonderful product. It's still a wonderful
It's
product.
considered a hard surface.
It's great. Certain things you can't do on Corian. You can't put a pot on it. That you can't do.
Oh.
That's good. Stepdaughter, she has a beautiful house, historical house. And when they did the kitchen over probably 30 years ago, they put Corian countertops. They look brand new. But unfortunately, that would be something that's considered dated.
Mhm.
And then they have newer things now.
Quartz.
Quartz came after granite.
Yep.
And then while quartz was coming out, cement,
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
which I always thought was goofy because it's porous. But of course it is, but you got to seal it.
Yep.
And quartz is like much more expensive than and cement shouldn't be all that expensive.
The thing with cement though, I have a lot of friends that have
Right.
installed those. You have to reinforce the cabinets because of the weight.
Oh, okay.
That you're throwing a big chunk of weight on top of there. So
Makes sense. That would
So-
make sense.
you do have to think of those things. And then there's those epoxy overlays
Oh,
that
yeah.
came in that we had at our old office.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that stuff, I know a few installers, it doesn't last.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, you drop a pot on it, it's going to chip.
Yeah,
you
not
know,
good. I can remember I saw that stuff first.
looks cool. This is epoxy.
This is
It's different.
this is epoxy over concrete.
Correct. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
That's different.
It's only as good as the surface you put it on.
Well, yeah, but at the home showing they had this stuff, and basically you troweled it on over your Formica, I guess.
Yeah.
And when it was dry, it looked fabulous. And I said, "Wow, this is really great." And I went over and I felt it.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. I said, "What is this? What is this?" I thought
Not be sanitary.
this can't be good. At any rate,
Yep.
so there's all kinds of things going on out there. And, if you're looking to buy a house, reach out to us.
Yeah.
Because
Happy
that's
to
what
help.
we do. We're happy to help. And what should we give them for the final words of advice?
Oh, let's see. So, try to, I guess, look up the acronyms a little
If
bit.
you're an
ahead of
agent,
time.
stop using these freaking acronyms.
Yes.
That's one of my things.
And if you're in the buying or selling process, just to look into some of those terms so that you're not so confused right off the bat.
And for now, I'm Brendan Cunningham, the real estate doctor. We got Matt Paul here, does it all.
Thanks for chiming in.
That's it.
Follow, like, and subscribe.
We'll get you next week. We have thrills and spills next week. Oh, you're really going to them next week. I'm frightened next week.
Thanks for tuning in.
You got you.